Good morning. I'm Sharon Diesenhaus. Every morning we have been opening the phones to try to help you deal with the tragedy of the World Trade Center and its aftermath. Joining us this morning to try to offer some advice, Dr. Annie Kalajian, a psychology professor at Fordham University. We will be taking your calls this hour at 212-NY1-TALK. And Dr. Kalajian, I know that you're a specific expert in this area of mass trauma. You have a book, Disaster and Mass Trauma. What is one of the things that strikes you as most compelling or most noteworthy about a trauma that is experienced so broadly by a whole city, really by a whole country?
And I must add a whole globe, because we've heard that there's a lot of fear and anger in other countries rippling too. It's a grandity. It's so large, and the magnitude and the impact and the multiple losses and the multiple grieving. I think it's going to be some time for us to heal, and it's going to take some time for us to cope with every step of the way, because it's a process, and it's going to be some time for us. Hopefully, when we come together and help one another, we can cope much better.
With 5,000 people lost just in the World Trade Centers, and I mean, most people I know someone who was there. Yes. We've been talking about this as a citywide mental health crisis. Yes. What do you anticipate as being the sort of short-term issues and the long-term issues that will come out of this emotionally for people?
Well, the short term, we're dealing with a lot of fear and a lot of anger. And these are both very, very limiting and disabling people. With fear, for example, it makes people unable to explore their daily activities, unable to engage in social relationships, unable to engage in hobbies. So this is detrimental to their individual health, which then will affect their families and children. And the anger, if it's not expressed really in a healthy way, and it's not differentiated between feeling and behavior, may cause a lot of problems. I saw, for example, someone kicking an elevator door. Now, I may be generalizing. I may be generalizing, but this is not an appropriate way of expressing anger. Of course, it's better than kicking a human being or an animal. So it's really, we need to talk about these issues, and every step and every feeling need to be resolved.
So talking about it is one positive way of dealing with this. We talked about the crisis, yes. What are the proper responses, both from those of us who are friends of people who lost people, and from even a sort of network of people? How can all of New York be supportive of those who experience the loss?
Maybe I can give you an analogy of a cut. When you have a cut on a finger, before it bleeds, it's numb. And before it hurts, then it bleeds. Before you even feel the hurt, it starts bleeding. And then it takes some time. It hurts until it heals, which means it goes through the stages of scar forming, scab forming, and so on, until finally the scab falls off and there's some scar left there. And grief is like a big wound. It has almost every feeling you can imagine, strong, negative, and positive, except joy. You have everything in there.
Very
sadness.
Hard to experience joy when you're feeling grief.
Exactly. Except joy. You have all the strong feelings: anger, guilt, sadness, depression. So every one of these feelings, depending on what you are feeling most, you need to address those, you need to express them, and you need to know that you need to give it time, you need to lick it, you need to give it nurturance so that you can heal from it.
So we've been talking a lot about everyone having to find their sense of community in this, and I think you can't emphasize that enough, but I think we as New Yorkers need to help create community for each other as well.
Yes, definitely. We can do that as it's happening through a lot of collective mournings. That is very important, rituals. to establish rituals and come together. Yes, to mourn, to remember, and to remember the good memories of that person, and to come together. And there's a Swedish saying, I've said this before, but shared sorrow is half sorrow, and shared joy is double joy. So let's come together to make that half
it's interesting. I think the New York Times has been running longer obituaries on all of the people who have been confirmed dead, or at least accepted as dead by their families. And I really think that that's a wonderful way as a community for us to read, to bear witness, to share in this, so that it's all of our deaths, it's all of our losses. And when people talk about it, because I've been hearing people talk about it.
Exactly.
I think that it's, kind of helpful.
Very healthy, very healthy.
We have a caller. Are you there?
Hello?
Amber from
Hello?
Queens. Hi, how are you?
Hi, how you doing?
Okay.
My
What's on your
question
mind?
is, well, I'm an EMS worker, and I've been down to ground zero several times, and I just wanted to know, what do I need to do? I mean, they have debriefings at my job, but, I don't want to seem like I'm nuts or anything like that, because sometimes your jobs judge you when you go to these kind of, psychology
Not in this situation, I don't think.
So, I mean, what do I need to do? Because I've been feeling really depressed, and I haven't been able to return to work.
Oh, well, that's totally understandable. I mean, you have to be sure, for one thing, to get rid of the stigma of seeking out counseling and help, because I think at this point everyone in New York needs some therapy. So that's for one thing.
Yes, and I like to encourage you, if you feel safer in an environment that is not judgmental, that is not going to have to reflect upon your person, you can go to some of the hospitals that are offering free supportive debriefing, so that you feel that you can open up freely. It's important how you feel, and if that's how you feel within your work environment, please seek other hospitals or counselors that can give you the support. You need all the support you can
And there are a
get.
number of places, we've been giving out these numbers periodically throughout the last several weeks, but I know that the Red Cross has a lot of free psychological counseling. And yesterday we had a doctor here from St. John's University. Excuse me. The phone number that you can call there is 718-990-1900. They have group therapy sessions, 10 of them for $5, and they're going to have a sort of a town meeting on October 10th from 6 to 8 at the UC Center at St. John's University. So those are just some resources that are available for you, places to go if you want to create a little bit of anonymity, but you should not feel stigmatized in any way and uncomfortable about seeking help, because particularly since you've been to Ground Zero, you've been really directly affected by this.
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
That's right. Yes, some places, workplaces are judgmental because everyone is unique in their way of processing this grief.
Which I want to talk to you about, because there are so many different paces, and I think one negative thing that people can do without even realizing that they're being hurtful is to rush somebody else's grieving process.
Exactly. It's not something that you can rush through. It's a unique and individual pace, and we need to respect one another. I may be in a place where I'm not ready yet, and I personally, I must say, because I've been running around since the September 11th tragedies, just 2 days ago I was able to really let go and cry. I was really shocked.
Right.
I was telling my sister,
20
I said,
days after it happened.
I couldn't believe 20 days after, finally, I had some free time to work through my feelings. So we need to respect one another's process and one another's place in the grieving process.
I think that's why we've been getting, in the last couple of days, a lot of phone calls from firemen, from policemen, from EMS workers, because those people were in sort of the smallest circle of this bullseye, but so busy and focusing on pulling people out, on pulling out the debris, on sort of immersing themselves in the scene 24 hours a day, not sleeping, not eating, that the reactions are delayed, as you were saying. And now, for them, maybe it's sinking in. For people who have lost loved ones, I think at this stage, probably more than 3 weeks post-trauma, are coming to accept at least that they are lost, if not coming to terms with it.
Yes, and I have several detective friends that are calling from Ground Zero or Staten Island, and they are saying that they haven't even had that time to have that private place for them to be able to mourn, because they've been working 12 hours, 6 days. So when they have that one day, they're just collapsing and sleeping. So we have many people that haven't had that day or that time to mourn and to grieve and to come to terms with the immensity of this tragedy.
Let's go to Carla now. Carla?
Yes.
Oh, Carlos. I'm sorry. I didn't hear correctly. Carlos, what's on your mind?
You were talking about therapy and healing, but how is it possible to heal when you turn every other channel shows the buildings blowing up, falling down, and people screaming? That constantly reminds us what happened. I'm not saying to forget what happened, but you talk about healing and going on with your life, but when you turn the channel, you see planes hitting, people screaming, firemen running, and that's not healing. It's still in your mind. It's still fresh in your mind.
Right. Well, I think you have to deal with what your comfort level is, and since I'm speaking to you from a television station, I'm not going to tell you to turn off New York 1, but maybe you should turn off some of those other channels, because if it's really bothering you, you know, maybe this is the time to start watching reruns of your favorite sitcom, you know, just to distract you.
Yes, I must emphasize that we need to be more selective in choosing what we like to watch. And this is a time that you need to heal, you need perhaps some sitcoms, humorous and comedies, or just turn it off and have some time to reflect, because you cannot mourn when you're constantly stimulated and you're constantly in front of the screen. I don't want to discourage people from watching TV, but I like to emphasize that we need to be more selective and we need to have some quiet time. That's when the healing begins.
Don't feel like you're a slave to the television, because it is upsetting to watch some of these programs, and so if it is upsetting to you, don't torture yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, we've been talking a lot about sort of the secondary circle in this bullseye in terms of people who've been affected by it, because at this stage we've been getting a lot of calls from the workers who are just kind of coming up for air for the first time. But I'd like to just return the focus for a moment to those who lost people and who are grieving that deepest pain right now.
The families.
The families.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What, you know, we've been talking a little bit about maybe trying to learn to redraw the landscape, to move forward and look forward. But if you're looking, in looking back, how do you talk to people who are grieving in that sort of immediate first few weeks kind of pain about maybe organizing the memories of someone to kind of find a way to have a place to put them in their hearts and minds and memories?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What do you say to them?
First, you will start from where they are. You will try to have them talk and express themselves and find out, are they in that anger mode? Are they in that sad and depressed mode? Are they in that perhaps guilty mode? Is there anything that it's normal that people during the loss, they try to replay the scenario and try to find out, well, maybe I should have done this way or that way.
Right.
So we need to first find out where are they in the process of the grieving.
I just want to interrupt you for one second. There was one woman who I saw on the news somewhere, I don't even know if it was on New York 1, whose name was Philomena, which is why I remember, because it was such an unusual name. And she lost her husband. And she couldn't remember the last conversation she had with him. He had called her, but in her anxiety, she couldn't recall the goodbye. And if that's the last conversation she had with her husband, she was panicked because she couldn't remember how she said goodbye.
Yes, there goes. She has some guilt feelings about it, and her anxiety, when you're too anxious, it blocks and interferes with your recollection, with your memory. So that's where she's trying to find some lost shared words to hold on to, but her anxiety is interfering from her recalling that. But really, she wants to really cry. It's important for her. At that level, it's important for her to cry and just to let go and say, it's okay, whatever happened, whatever she said, said it was okay. And she did say the best that she could, considering all that tragic, anxiety-provoking situation.
Well, there's so many should-have, could-have, would-haves, I think, that people do because they didn't get to say, I love you one extra time. They didn't get to do this. How do you talk to them about that?
Well, you just let them talk about their own guilt. So we have sometimes too much sense of responsibility, and as if we have the sense of cause and effect, as if what we did caused some damage to the other person or some damage in the outer world. And that is our just sense of trying to gain control because we feel so helpless in this situation. So we try to find, oh, I could have been more in control, or I could have done something that would have made a difference. It's just our sense, it's coming from our sense of helplessness.
Right.
And we need to address that it is normal to feel helpless in this situation.
So, getting back to what we were talking about before I interrupted you so rudely,
That's okay.
in terms of organizing those memories so that someone can have a nice little, there's no nice little package, but a comfortable place to go to remember that person instead of just having it be all about the loss. To get to the point that you're remembering them and who they were in their prime rather than picturing them at the moment of
well, what you are talking about, referring to the almost close to the last stage of grieving, which is acceptance and celebration of the person. So
I'm rushing the process.
Yeah. Well, some people may be at that level. We don't know. That's why I said let's hear the person. So they may be at that level, and you encourage them to, through rituals, they have, let's say, family gatherings, extended family gatherings, and what they do is each one of them would tell stories about how they remember that person, some important stories, anecdotes or jokes or events from that person, and just process that in a collective way. That would be very therapeutic.
So that's very constructive.
Yes.
How do you get that tape out of your head, though, of picturing what happened, what befell them in the final moments? How do you get that tape to stop playing and get to the point that you can start celebrating who they were before this tragedy?
Yes, the tape has its ability of fading if we don't give it importance. If one way is to get back to our normal everyday life and to carry on with love and compassion and responsibility, go back to your work, go back to your family, go back to your hobbies, go back to your friendships.
Embrace life.
Embrace life, exactly, perfect.
We have Lisa from Queens, but before we go to Lisa, I just want to tell our viewers the number is 212-NY1-TALK. I am joined by Dr. Annie Kalajian, the author of Disaster and Mass Trauma, an expert in mass grieving. Lisa?
Hi.
Hi, how are you? What's on your mind?
I was just wondering what might be the best way to deal with ignorant people at this time. I live in Queens, and I'm close to the area, and I actually saw the entire second tower collapse from the roof of my building, and I had a lot of friends that were down there. Luckily, they all were safe. But I work in Long Island, and I find a lot of people in Long Island that weren't directly affected acting as if it happened somewhere else. Like it doesn't, like Long Island is this, like, they live in a bubble, and they just don't think that it should affect their business or what they're doing out there if they didn't directly lose someone or know someone who lost someone.
That's surprising, really.
That is surprising.
Because I've been speaking to people across the country who feel personally traumatized, personally saddened, personally sick to their stomachs.
Yeah, I've been coming across a lot of people who just feel, well, it happened like somewhere else, like it's there and it's not affecting me here, so it shouldn't affect your work or, things that you do around other people that don't feel, directly affected.
Well, if you're
very
talking
odd, actually. I feel like I'm living in two different worlds right now.
If you're talking about your own feelings of alienation in that environment, that's really kind of an issue that we've been talking about in the last couple of weeks, because I think in varying degrees, you're speaking of something that's more of an extreme, but I think in varying degrees, people have met with less sensitivity than their personal situation would be comfortable with.
Right.
So I think that's something that we can talk about, because you shouldn't feel isolated. That's one thing.
Yes. Well, one thing it could be that it's denial. Some of them may be in fear of it. If it happens to them, they try to deal with it by denying, as if it hasn't happened. It could be that one level.
Right.
The other level, what you just said, the sense of alienation, we could feel that even right here in the city, because of differing and different levels of the process, and how we are unique and we are at a different level of that grieving process. So the people that are in the acceptance stage are really getting upset with the ones who are at the grieving stage, at the initial stage.
Which is very selfish.
Yes. We need to gain a little more acceptance that this is not a one formula fits all. It's not a one size fits all. It is a very unique, very individual, and very slow process. So we need to respect that and give people their space.
Right. So maybe you can pass that information on to the people that you're dealing with, who you're finding insensitive to your feelings.
Do that, and they just think that, I mean, I find it hard to believe that they're not responding like any way at all towards it.
Yeah.
But it's just making my job a little more awkward
Right, because
now.
you're feeling so alienated because it's so much a part of you.
Right.
I mean, the only thing to do is to find your community elsewhere, and you know, your work is your work, and your support system is something that needs to be cultivated somewhere else, I guess.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, and best of luck. We are at 212-NY1 Talk with Dr. Annie Kalajian. We will be here just after a quick break, so stay tuned. If you have some fears, some anxieties, something you want to talk about, call us.
Want to know something really scary? Fright Fest isn't just on Halloween. This goes on all month, which means plenty of trick-or-treats, haunted attractions, spooky faces, and hours of fun for the whole family, along with all those scary rides. So get the costumes ready for Fright Fest at Six Flags Great Adventure.
Save on admission with discount coupons from participating Burger King restaurants.
AOL is all I need. I've got a brand new grandson.
I still have a younger brother in college. I email him a lot.
Very easy to use. Instant messages are amazing.
I love hearing
You've got mail.
AOL is really quick.
America Online has new music. I feel like a part of a community with AOL. She's always on AOL.
Customer service has been superb.
I love AOL.
America Online, so easy to use, no wonder it's #1. Call 1-800-4ONLINE. From the day you were born, the world has held up a mirror. At CenterCare, we see you for who you are. We offer health and medical services when and where you need them, for you and your family. If you're enrolled in Medicaid or Child Health Plus, choosing a plan that provides quality care and respect is important. That's what you can expect from CenterCare. For a healthy life, the best care must reflect all your needs. CenterCare Health Plan, reflections of you.
I'm Sharon Diesenhaus, and joined by Dr. Annie Kalajian at 212-NY1 Talk. She is an expert in mass trauma, and we're talking about New Yorkers' feelings, your anxieties, your fears in the wake of the World Trade Center attacks. We have Dawn from Manhattan right now. Dawn, what's on your mind?
Well, I'm a resident of Lower Manhattan. I live about 7 blocks from the site, and my question is dealing with the people who are coming to the neighborhood to take pictures, and I feel it's an invasion. Our streets, I live in Tribeca. Basically, in the afternoon, evenings, it gets very quiet down here on the weekends, and we have a lot of people who are coming here to take pictures of the site. I live across from a firehouse, and they come to the block to take pictures of the firehouse. And I'm having trouble dealing with that.
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that they're not all tourists. I'm not saying that there aren't some people who are just tourists and have some kind of...
Right. I don't even think that they are necessarily tourists coming from other cities and states,
right,
as much as it could be people from the outer boroughs, people who are again, coming to take photographs in hordes. We're talking about hordes of people who are flocking to this area. I understand people are curious or maybe need to see with their own sights, but they tell us to get back to a form of normalcy, and this is not normal for us.
Right. Well, it's harder for you because you're so close to ground zero. But again, I think it's important to be sensitive to other people's grieving processes. And some people might find this a way to bear witness and to save this for themselves and to honor the dead.
Yes, that is really, the therapeutic use of that is very important for those who are grieving, and which is all of us. And going to the site and eyewitnessing, being there and bearing witness and having some memories is a process, the process of grieving and putting closure and integrating the trauma to your own psyche collectively and individually. So I hope you can bear some patience and try to have an understanding that your neighborhood is going to be disrupted for a couple of months until this settles down.
But maybe try to look at them as fellow grievers, and that's how they're trying to get back to normal, though it's not the same way that you are. Again, we've been talking about trying to be sensitive to different people's methods of grieving and achieving normalcy, and even if it's incompatible with yours, I think maybe try to see it in that way, and it'll feel like less of a violation.
I see. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have Shauna now from Manhattan. Shauna?
Hi, I'm just calling to ask a question. Ever since the incident, I live Midtown, and I was walking towards downtown that day to meet a friend there in Tribeca, and ever since this all happened, I've just been really, like, paranoid and having bad dreams, and, like, I don't know which way I feel like I'm lost, and I feel like I need some kind of sense of direction because I can't get over this, and I feel I need some type of help, and I don't know exactly if I should go to a psychologist or to a psychic or, you know, and you look like you have some type of, I don't know, she has this personality and this energy where I feel that maybe she can give me some good advice.
Well, I'd like to give you some help, saying that any one of those support groups, I think, would be first for you. And if the support group does not work, if those debriefing groups, then I would say individual therapy would work for you. It depends. Some people respond well in groups because especially this is something that we all experience collectively and we all shared collectively. You feel that you're not alone in this when you express it, and you have other people supporting you, giving you ideas. This is how I coped. So that empowers you. But if you feel like the groups are not really helping you, definitely I'll be more than happy to work with you.
If you stay on the line and leave your phone number, then Dr. Kalajian can follow up with you. Is that a good way to do it?
Sure.
Okay. Because I think basically at this point, anyone who feels like they might need some help does need some help.
Sure.
And what you're describing sound like many of the classic symptoms of depression. You're saying that you're unable to focus, you feel like you're in a fog. 3 weeks after the event, maybe that's not depression, but maybe 8 weeks after.
It could be post-traumatic stress disorder that we can nip it in the bud if we give you the support right now. 1 or 2 sessions or 2 sessions of EMDR, which is the eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. That's a quick, really, treatment for trauma.
Okay, well that's something that a lot of people can consider. There have been a lot of articles in the newspaper about people experiencing a lot of different aspects of this nerves, if you will. About functioning, not so much, not just sort of getting rid of the fog, because that's sort of the first step, but just actually getting on the subway, getting on a plane, that's the biggest hurdle, and going to places that feel like they might be targets. There's a fine line between prudence and paranoia.
Right. And we get the reinforcement everywhere, just coming through Lincoln Tunnel. All these regulations, new regulations, it's a constant reminder of the potential threat. And some people deal with it in a very healthy way, saying that, okay, this is going to secure us. This is going to give us more security. And some other people feel that this is an intrusion because it's a constant reminder of the potential threat.
Yeah, but so do they want to stay deluded and unsafe?
Well, this is what I mean. It is not giving the same effect to people. Those soldiers or the Army, what is that? The National Guard, I'm sorry, at the airports is giving mixed feelings. Some safety, but some others constant reminder that there is a threat.
So what do you say to people? What do you say to them to deal with that? The people who are still stuck in their apartments, who might be watching and fearful to move on.
Yes, if they are stuck in their apartments and they're unable to concentrate and work and having nightmares, they definitely need individual. If they haven't really benefited from group counseling, they need individual counseling, because this is almost 24 days after the incident, and we need to establish some sort of normalcy. And if you feel like you haven't, please feel free that get in touch with someone.
Okay. We have Roberta from Manhattan on the phone right now. Roberta, what's on your mind?
Hello. I live just a few blocks from the World Trade Center and also work just a few blocks from the World Trade Center. So I'm surrounded by this environment. Strangely enough, I'm functioning quite well. I have been doing a little bit of volunteer work at the site, which initially helped me a great deal. And you know, it still does, obviously, because I'm helping. But I can't seem to pull myself out of a really deep depression or feeling of just lassitude, I think is the best word. Even though I'm accomplishing stuff and I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
You're crawling through molasses.
Yeah. Exactly.
But that's good. That I like to emphasize how helping one another is an empowering experience, because we feel so helpless because of this tragedy. So whatever we do, we feel like we are in control, and especially helping one another is a great step towards healing. And there's a really saying about that, is that when one helps another, both are strengthened. So we are all going to feel stronger on a lot of levels. But I understand the feeling you are describing, the underneath, the sadness. You said depression. I don't know if it's as deep. We use depression very selectively when it's clinical depression. That means you cannot continue your work. You cannot continue helping others. But you sound like you are helping others. You are doing your work, but you are feeling an underlying sadness and inability to integrate this, which is a normal feeling. I think if you can express it a little bit more, so we know if it's sadness mixed in with anger, mixed in with feeling helpless, if we know a little bit more about that, we can give you more tailored
So you're saying it's a normal reaction to these abnormal circumstances.
Definitely.
And I
like
think
to reinforce
you made a very good point in saying that if you are able to be effective enough to go and volunteer and to do things so that you feel like you're being effective and contributing, I think that probably will be a very good curve toward helping you feel better yourself.
That's right.
Because then you're a part of it, and you're healing others, and in the process of healing yourself.
That's right.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Right?
I think I probably just need to be more patient.
Well, yes, that too. That it takes time. That we're not going to all feel very joyous anytime soon. So let's give ourselves at least 40 days. Usually, the Armenian culture, they believe after someone dies, you need 40 days of reflective moments and collective support and nurturance. So we need to pamper ourselves and each other.
And again, if you're feeling impatient with yourself, you know, maybe what you need to do is reach out to some people in your community and get some support that way, so that you find that you're not alone. Because I know a lot of people who are in your position right now, and they don't live nearly as close to the middle of things as you do, but people who are feeling sort of like they're moving through molasses. It's a hard adjustment, and you should give yourself a break.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have Sue from Staten Island on the phone. Sue, what's on your mind?
My husband is a therapist, and he's also the brother of one of the victims at the World Trade Center. And since September 11, he's been like a pillar of strength with the family, the wife, the mother, and kind of giving everybody therapy. However, since Saturday, which we were able to go to the family center, and he went to the site, to Ground Zero, he's been very strange, acting out, grouchy, and it's totally unlike him. And I feel like we're having role reversal where he's reaching out to me, and I have no idea how to help him.
Right. Well, that's actually, I'm so glad you called, because I think there are so many people, unfortunately, who are in your position. And since your husband is a therapist, it's a particularly strange role reversal. But it's really just what Dr. Kalajian was talking about, that he's had to be such a pillar of strength for everyone else that it's taken him this long. It's taken him more than 20 days to get to the point that he was forced to confront his own grief. And I think going to the family center has to be the ultimate wake-up call on that front.
That's right. And it's a blessing that he's able to finally address his own feelings of sadness and grief and anger, whatever it is that he's feeling at this time. So anything you can do in terms of reaching out to other friends, that his colleagues, for example, is he a psychotherapist? You said therapist. Oh.
Yeah, I was wondering if you think that would be a good idea if I call some of his friends to just, because I think everybody's afraid to reach out to him. And that was one of the things in my mind. I was wondering if I should call his friend.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. We've been talking about this for the last 3 weeks. Everybody needs a sense of community, and particularly a therapist, and even and particularly even more one who's lost a brother. I mean, that's just the most intimate ache.
His only brother.
Oh,
It's
yes.
unbearable.
That's a very deep wound, psychic wound, and he needs some time to grieve that. Yes.
But absolutely, I think you have a great instinct to call his friends who are therapists, call his friends who aren't therapists. I think he needs to have the support now, and he needs to have his community and people surrounding him and letting him talk and letting him cry and letting him act out even, as you were saying. And it sounds like you have a wonderful, supportive, loving attitude, so.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I'm there for him, and I know this is going to take a long time, and, you know, we have time. We have plenty of time.
Of course.
I just want to be able to do the right thing for him.
Yes.
Was he able to identify his brother, or yeah?
That's one of the hardest part that we don't have. So we're planning a memorial, and it's just very difficult to find out how to go about it. Should we have a casket? Should we not have a casket? It's so different and new that nobody really knows how to help.
Well, this is a whole category. I can't remember the whole title of the book, but there was a book called Ambiguous Loss, and that is really what unfortunately thousands of people are dealing with right now. Ambiguous loss is a loss where you know that you've lost the person, but you don't have physical evidence of that person to hold on to say goodbye to properly bury and properly mourn. And it's a much more difficult situation.
Yes, it is very difficult, but we had recommended, and I had heard from one of the news stations that the mayor was going to provide urns.
Yes, he is.
Yes.
5,000.
Yes, with the ashes of the building, which is symbolic gesture of having something around which to orchestrate the rituals of grief and mourning and collective family gatherings.
Right, so that people can properly say goodbye somehow.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because that's actually something that I've thought so much about. It's very, very difficult to find a way to formalize saying goodbye. I went to a funeral and there was no casket.
Right.
And I think it's so, so sad.
Yes, it is, yes.
You know,
we've gone through, I have it in my book, the many disasters in Pakistan, in Turkey, in Armenia. There were thousands of bodies not found, burned in the disasters. So it's a new way of trying to address loss. That word is very appropriate, ambiguous loss,
yes.
Where you don't have any of the remains to be able to put it together, but you have to try symbolically to do that around the urn or around the memories of that person.
So again, we come back to the theme of creating rituals to say goodbye and finding a community to say goodbye with you.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
We are at 212-NY1 Talk, speaking with Dr. Annie Kalajian about grief and loss, and we encourage you to call. We're going to take a quick break now, but we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Mm-hmm.
In profound sorrow for our friends, family, and heroes who have perished in this tragedy. In deep gratitude for the courage of the emergency and rescue workers and all the volunteers, we reach out to our community, to the world, for strength, hope, and healing.
Looking for a great car and a chance to rebuild your credit? Call 1-800-APPROVE.
Yes, you can drive a car home today.
Low financing.
1-800-APPROVE.
Rebuild my credit.
1-800-APPROVE.
Low payments.
Call 1-800-APPROVE. If you've had a bankruptcy, repossession, foreclosure, divorce, call 1-800-APPROVE. Right now, we say yes to getting you approved for a car. It's easy. Just give us a call at 1-800-APPROVE.
Yes, you can drive a car home today. Yes!
When we first found out my wife had cancer, we were devastated. I kept thinking, what are we going to do? Then we found out her cancer would have been curable if the doctors had diagnosed it earlier. That's when we called the Med Law team. They understood all the medicine, and they were willing to fight for my family.
Learn the facts from lawyers you can trust. Call 1-888-MEDLAW1. That's 1-888-MEDLAW1.
Welcome back. I'm Sharon Diesenhaus, joined by Dr. Annie Kalajian. We are talking about your fears, sadness, sense of loss, anxieties, all of those things and more in the wake of the World Trade Center disasters. 212-NY1-TALK is our phone number. Please give us a call. Even if it's the first call you've made, this is maybe a good way to get off the couch and begin that healing process. We have a caller right now, Christine from Manhattan. Christine?
Hi, Sharon. Hi, Doctor. My question is, a friend of mine, passed away in the disaster, and I know many other people that have passed away in this disaster since I live close by and I've worked in the area. But my friend's wife, the one that died, called me up the other day, and she wanted to talk to me about her loss, and I just did not know what to say to her. I couldn't find the right words, and I wanted to know if you can help.
Yes. Well, you can say exactly that. It's so difficult. My friend, whatever her name is, I can't even find the words to tell you. I don't know what it would make a difference. Just say whatever exactly you're feeling. And your friend would love to hear that you are struggling as much as she is, trying to nurture her, support her in her process while you are going through a process yourself.
And let her talk. That's really to get a sense of where everyone I've spoken with, and we've been doing this for several weeks, so we've spoken with a lot of experts, but one universal theme is you have to go to where the victim is emotionally, and whatever she's ready to talk about, and wherever she is in the acceptance, and really just, I think, being an ear is a wonderfully helpful thing to do.
Yeah.
That's right. Being there for her, being there, being together, sharing the moment.
What's she telling you about where she is right now, how she's doing?
Well, she knows that, I was very close friends with her husband as well, and she wanted to talk to me about, things that, he's spoken to her about. So she really wants to kind of feel closer to him by talking to all of his close friends at this time.
That's very healthy.
And, I am, telling her just, stick in, stay with it, hold on to your good memories of him, and focus on right now. She has a 5-year-old daughter, so focus on on her, and make sure that she's feeling okay, and she realizes that her daddy's not coming back, and just try to be there for her as well.
That's right. So try to encourage her to recollect and re-experience some of the experiences she's had with her husband, and she can establish that already talking with you too, because you're an important part of the family, the husband and her.
Okay.
So you have a very important role.
Yeah.
And just keep filling it
Try.
again and again and again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. When we were on break, you said something interesting to me about the grieving process, and just in terms of those of us who are friends of those who've lost people.
Right.
How do you help them along that process? Not in terms of pushing them, because you don't want to rush that process.
Exactly.
But how do you recognize where they are?
Right.
If you want to go to that place.
If you detect any kind of anger, rage, or guilt, that means they haven't gone into the grieving yet. because anger, rage, and guilt, strong feelings of guilt, will block the grieving and will put you in that defensive and aggressive mode of trying to vent it out and repel it. So you have to help them through that and help them to talk through those negative feelings so they can then go through really crying and breaking down and going through the steps and then finally accepting.
Which is where it sounds like Christine's friend is. Her
Yes.
friend sounds like she's
Yes.
she's accepting it. She's just
Exactly.
hoping to find ways to sort of keep him going
Alive,
in her circle.
yes, in the memory,
Yes.
reestablishing that, recalling and re-experiencing events from the past. It's a very therapeutic and positive process.
Okay. Jessica from Brooklyn is on the phone right now. Jessica, what's on your mind?
Hello, yes, my sister's a police officer, and when this all happened, she's afraid to go back to work, and she's very upset, and I want to know if I can give her any words to encourage her to help all the people. I mean, I don't know what to tell her. She has a daughter, and she's very afraid.
Well, I mean, she has to be pretty brave in the first place to be a police officer.
Yes.
So I guess you need to figure out some way to tap into that, but maybe
Right.
Dr. Palachian.
That's an excellent point in that try to find things from her past that would show courage and rationality and find out what are some of the things that she's afraid around going back to work. Is her work in the area where she feels that she's going to be re-traumatized and she needs some time away? Then I could respect that and she may need some time away. But if her work area is not right directly in it and she's not re-traumatized, then we need to find out what are some of the fears that she has.
Yeah, she's just very afraid of just anything. She's so proud that she still has her daughter and that she wasn't there when everything happened. I mean, I'm blessed. Thank God she wasn't there when, you know.
Well, you know, I've said this before, but if she's a New York City police officer, she's obviously a brave person and she's confronted a lot of danger in her professional life before. What was it about this that changed it for her? Maybe if you can address that specific thing.
She's a new police officer. She's just been a police officer for 1 year, and she really hasn't seen anything this bad. But she just had a baby. She's like 2 years old, and she's just nervous that she wasn't going to come back to her family.
Yes.
So that's what scared her the most.
That's a scary thought.
Yes, when
she's normal.
Yes, she's normal. When you have people that are dependent on you, it gives it another level, another meaning of this loss. What will you do? What the kind of things you can really help your children? But she needs to get some kind of professional help because her fear unconsciously would be transmitted to her child, because that's important information you gave about her having a child.
Yes.
Maybe she needs some time to bond with her child, because I've had a lot of people say that they needed to come home and bond with their children and their spouses to reconfirm life and celebrate life.
She's pretty strong in front of her daughter, but just in front of me, she's very, very upset. So I just wanted to give her some words. I really didn't know what to tell her. I don't know what to say to her. I'm her little sister. I look up to her. So I wanted to know what I could tell her.
There are a lot of people in this crisis who are taking on roles that they didn't have to take on before, and I'm glad to hear you're one of the ones stepping up to the plate.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
And again, talking to children is another issue because there are, you know, we are at serious risk for another generational mental health crisis if a lot of the grown-ups who are dealing with this aren't really dealing with the issues that are troubling them, because you can fool yourself, but you cannot fool your children.
That's right, and even the caller was saying that she's strong in front of her daughter. We're talking about transmission, generational transmission, and it goes through the parenting. The children are like sponge; they absorb everything.
Right. And
even when you're trying to hide.
They have amazing radar.
Exactly, and especially when you're trying to hide and appear strong, they feel that difference and they sense it
Because
and they
there's an
absorb
edge.
it. Yes, they absorb it, and they then, some children may feel like it's something wrong they did.
Right.
It's their fault. because in their own world, they don't know. The only thing they know, mommy is not the same anymore.
Right. Well, and also I read, actually, my daughter's nursery school director said to all of the parents, because they had a meeting, and they said that nursery school children, or young children like this woman's, have something called magical thinking.
Yes.
And by which they can imagine that they are responsible. If mommy is upset, if mommy has a certain stress, if mommy's got a short temper, they can think that they're responsible. So you really need to actively diffuse that.
Right. Yeah, they feel like they were bad girls or bad boys, and they've done something. So that inner guilt and inner responsibility gives them more complications in their development, because they are going through developmental stages. Very crucial that each stage is very treated individually, and when they have those kinds of interpretations in their little minds, it's going to affect them.
We've been talking a lot in the last couple of weeks about what to say to children who are maybe the children of police officers going back and firefighters going back and that sort of thing. But we haven't spent a lot of time, in fact, we've even talked about children who are in the schools in the immediate area. But we haven't spent a lot of time talking about children who have lost someone. And I was reading an article the other day that just in the children of the fire department alone, there are more than 1,000 who don't have fathers now, or mothers. That's just an unbearably high number, and that's just from the 343 firefighters missing, to say nothing of the 5,000 other people.
Right, yes.
What do you say to a child who has experienced such devastating loss at such an early age, even potentially at an age when they can't even comprehend the loss?
Yes.
To say nothing of digesting it.
Yes. Well, it's a very difficult and individual process. You have to be able to talk with them, of course, and you have to encourage them to talk themselves. So you know where their thoughts are. Like you said, the magical thinking. You can find out where their thoughts are and where their belief systems are, because they make their own stories, because they fill the gap. Wherever they feel there is inconsistency, they fill it with their own information. So you don't want that information to be filled by themselves in a delusional or kind of a magical way.
Right.
So you want to guide them by encouraging them to talk and try to give them a lot of love and physical reinforcement, hugging and kissing, and whoever is the tenderness, whoever is the parent that is alive and here, to be there, to be more consistent, to be more available, and to listen to them, because you don't want to give too much information to children. You hear them and find out what their questions are.
It's the same thing that we've been talking about in terms of adults in the grieving process.
Yes.
You have to sort of interview them and get a sense from them where they are and go to that place.
Exactly.
So let's just take children from different age groups. We've kind of been talking about the youngest ones with the magical thinking, but that really stops like at sort of kindergarten?
Yeah, no, first sometimes it pushes all the way to second, but then the pre-adolescent and adolescent would have a lot of rage. I've had to deal with some children of parents who were missing, who are missing, and they have tremendous rage. Why my father? Why do I have to deal with this? So you need to try to process that either through drawing or play therapy, or just try to engage them in getting this out, expressing it out. Because whatever they hold in, it becomes poisonous, like noxious. But whatever they express...
And stops them from developing. I mean, with the child, you realize everything's sort of concentrated, so you need to sort of distill a little bit so that they can move forward into adulthood as emotionally healthy children, even though they have experienced devastating loss.
Exactly, exactly. And if we really guide them and advise them and be there with them, they will grow to be more strong and very centered and integrated children.
We have a caller now. I believe it is Ileana? Susan. Susan, are you there?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Where are you thinking about today?
My question for the doctor is, firstly, I lost a friend of over 30 years from World Trade who didn't work there but was doing a favor for another friend and happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and I've been having a very difficult time with it. My support comes from friends. I live alone, and it seems to be that what I observe is that my friends are in a period now of returning to a, quote, normal lifestyle, either having responsibilities of parenthood or going back to their jobs. And I feel very, very isolated, and I feel very lost myself. I see things, at least where I'm at, returning to, I use the word normal, it won't be normal, but what appears to be normal, and then I just look to the left of me at the West Side Highway and see trucks going by carrying tons of debris, and this discrepancy is, I'm not quite sure what to do with my own feelings, because I'm angry at my friends. At the same time, I understand they need to get on with things, and I feel a tremendous need to go down to the site, but I can't because I'm not a family member, and I feel very lost in this particular period, and I just feel there's no place to turn to.
Well, first of all, we've been giving lists out of places that you can turn in terms of the Red Cross, in terms of St. John's University. If you want more of those phone numbers, you can contact New York One, or if you stay on the phone, we will give you some of those numbers. St. John's, 718-990-1900, but we have lots more numbers as well. But you've been talking about a number of different issues. First of all, you lost a friend of 30 years, which is a devastating loss, and that's probably a much worse loss than most of your friends who are getting back to so-called normal. And the other thing was, beyond the randomness of this tragic terrorist event, this is somebody who wasn't even supposed to be in that building, so that's another thing to digest.
Yes, that's another really one of those wrong place, the wrong time, right. Where I'd like to know if you have any kind of other feelings in terms of, do you have, she was going to visit, you said, or do a favor to another friend. Are you friends with that other friend, or do you have any kind of feelings of guilt or anger? That needs to be processed first, and we need to talk about how you can get some support, because it's okay that they are dealing with it differently. You don't have to compare, or you don't have to really measure up. You need to really be honest with your own process, with your own feelings, and get help accordingly.
Okay. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but if you stay on the phone, and we can perhaps give some more information to that caller. Thank you so much for joining us. 212-NY1 Talk. We will be back tomorrow at 11 o'clock with more discussion of your feelings, your thoughts, your anxieties, and your fears in the wake of the World Trade Center disaster. Thanks for joining us. And thank you.
Larry King. He asks the questions you'd ask if you were asking presidents and pundits, rogues and royalty, movie stars and shining stars. And he's been asking questions on CNN for 15 years.
Of hope, in hope that they will be able to get some more information about their loved ones. We're joined today by Martha Santos. And tell me about the person that you're looking for.
Yes, Danielle.
Belief and denial and emotional numbing, which is normal, and that is something expected. And there is also some followed by emotional strong reactions as anger, as grief and sadness, which is also normal. Now, the time that is important for one to seek psychological counseling and help is when these symptoms interfere with their daily routine activities as work, family interactions, interpersonal relationships, and other things that are they are involved in pre-disaster. So that's when it is really crucial for individual to seek professional help, because the level of post-traumatic stress disorder, which is what we call the impact after such a horrific terrorism and horrific mass trauma. So that's when the line is crossed from the normal response to a response that seeks, that one needs to seek professional assistance.
The post-traumatic stress
symptoms is something, you know, even I on occasion feel that I may have been experiencing. I couldn't sleep the night after, and you know, I was finding it very difficult to get on with normal activities. But the best thing that happened to me was coming into work and getting on with the routine of sitting at the desk and doing what I do.
Exactly, exactly. That's what I need to emphasize. As soon as one can return to pre-disaster routine, as soon as one can take an action instead of reacting to the trauma, the healthier and the sooner those signs, natural, normal signs of PTSD will subside.
What is the length of time that you could expect these symptoms to come? A lot of people, even in our own newsroom, are saying it hasn't hit me yet.
Yes, that's why I said the initial reaction is emotional numbing, shock, and disbelief, and a sort of denial, which is in a way a healthy response for the body and the mind and the spirit saying to the person, this is too much for me to handle. I'm going to wait for this. And people are saying to me, this is like a movie. A lot of clients of mine and students are saying, this is like a horrific movie, and I'm waiting to wake up from this horrific nightmare, and it seems like I can't wake up. So the numbing protects us and provides us some time, buys us some time, so that we can slowly integrate this kind of disaster into our psyche and mind.
I'm sure it's a little different psychological picture when it comes to children. And, you know, earlier we heard from that woman, or John Schumo was describing that woman who had a son who said, Mommy, I can't see the World Trade Towers anymore, and that's what you used to tell me was the landmark, and if I ever got lost, look up, and then I'd know where I was. And she broke out hysterically in tears. But how do we deal with children when they see us becoming so upset over this? Is it better or worse for us to behave this way in front of the kids?
Well, it depends on the level. How much are you expressing? You need to role model and encourage the children to tell their stories, to share their fears, to share their concerns. That is normal. But you will not be out of control, sobbing and losing control yourself as an adult, because children look at us as adults to guide, for guidance and for control, for certainty. So we need to be role models to show them the appropriate way of talking about our feelings and telling our stories, coming together, even crying and expressing and sharing one's grief, sadness, anger, the helplessness that we feel in terms of this horrific event. So it's normal to express feelings, but I like to caution parents and teachers and adults not to go overboard by losing control in front of their children, because they depend on us. The children depend on us.
Is there anything that we should be particularly cognizant of when it comes to children? Is there any behavior that they might be exhibiting that we might not understand, but it is disturbed behavior as a result of the news of the week?
Yes, definitely. I'm glad you mentioned that, because there is an enormous separation anxiety in children. There's enormous feeling of they don't want to be left alone, and there may be some regressive behaviors. What I mean by that is that they may be clinging more than before. They may be they may refuse to go to sleep. They may be, let's say, thumb sucking if they weren't doing that before. If they were toilet trained, they may not be doing that anymore. They may be wetting their beds. So there are a certain amount of regressive behaviors that we need to be more tolerant of and understand that this is from their anxieties and fears.
How much is too much for children to know? Obviously, it depends on their age, but young children, if they say that that's just a fire and it's on TV, is that okay? You don't have to go into anything else, do you?
Well, it's good that you mentioned that, to listen and to hear the questions and the depth in the children. You don't need to elaborate if they are not ready. If they are talking about the fire, then focus on the fire. If they're talking more about terrorism, then just say something short and brief, then bring them back to here and now, the collectiveness of the family, whoever is left in the family, your love and your compassion. You hug them more, show them your love more, and give them the certainty that you will be there no matter what happens. That's what they need to hear. The other part that I didn't mention when I was talking about children's reaction to this disaster is also their physical reactions. They will have a lot of somatic complaints. Oh, mommy, my stomach is hurting. Oh, mommy, my head is hurting. Oh, mommy, those kinds of physical somatic complaints are also normal because they are having inability to put it in words, their emotions, and they can relate to the body more than their feelings, so they are expressing their fears through their body.
How much television and how much of the radio should the children be listening to?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I wanted to warn everyone, please shut your TV off and the radio off and spend some time talking, playing games, and comforting your children. The TV is not healthy even for adults. I have clients who have been really stuck to the screen until 6 a.m. Of course they would have difficulty sleeping. It's even in natural situations, it is not healthy to watch TV before going to sleep. Right before going to sleep, you need an hour of kind of collective thought and reflection for the day, and reaffirming your humanity and your love for the ones that you live with, and talking about the next day and the plans and actions. So it is very unhealthy to be glued to the television screen.
You know, Doctor, I think part of the problem there is that many parents think that this is history in the making, and for some reason they want to make sure that their children remember where they were and you know, be a part of this. It sounds peculiar, but I know that's the thinking of even some friends of mine as we were talking about this.
Well, it is history in making, and it is a traumatic situation that we will together work to make sure that it will not reoccur again. But by being glued to the television and listening to the radio consistently, it will not give you opportunity to reflect, and it will not give you opportunity to act. And that's the important thing, that you have some time for reflection and action, not reaction. When you are just listening to the news and to the radio and TV, you're filled with this certain level of helplessness and powerlessness that is very unhealthy.
Just finally, Doctor, you know, all of this brings back memories of the Oklahoma City bombing and the trauma and the ordeal that the rescue workers in that situation went through. The rescue workers in this case are obviously going to experience some similar feelings and experiences. What is the best thing that they can do to get over this?
The rescue workers definitely need debriefing sessions, organized, systematic professionals that can sit with them and process their feelings. I have done outreach programs around the world, and I found healthcare givers and rescue workers are most vulnerable to PTSD, and they come home extremely helpless, depressed, and unable to continue their daily routine. So I urge everyone that is involved in rescue, both mental health and physical rescue, that please to have some form of debriefing in any way that they can. And I'll be happy to volunteer my services in that. I have a team of mental health professional psychologists in New York that we're meeting tomorrow at Fordham, and I urge everyone that is interested to be part to come, and we will have several debriefing programs available for them.
What about family members of the rescue workers, of the police officers, the medics, the firefighters? When the firefighters or police officers come home, what should the family members do? Because obviously they're not going to understand what their loved one just went through.
Yes, that the family needs tremendous patience to deal with some of the irritability and hyperactivity and depression and powerlessness that they may express. And sometimes it may come in a form of anger and shortness, so the family needs tremendous patience to understand that these are normal signs of PTSD. These are normal signs of rescue workers not being able to save as much as they could, the powerlessness and the helplessness that they feel.
Doctor, if you'd just be on hold for a moment, we just want to point out to our viewers, all along we've been watching pictures. This is the scene from Andrews Air Force Base, and we earlier saw Hillary Clinton getting on board Air Force One. We also saw President Bush arriving at the airport there by Marine One, the presidential helicopter, and boarding Air Force One. They are en route now to New York City, and they'll be landing shortly, obviously, and when they do, we'll be following them all day long, but the president is going to be leading a delegation down to the lower Manhattan World Trade Center area for a tour. So we'll obviously have the latest on that.
I wanted to urge the families too, and everyone else, that we're all affected by this. And I want to urge everyone to try to reach out to their own spiritual support system, the church, the temple, the mosque, or whatever else they can receive spiritual support. It's really reinforced in all the research after such calamity and disasters around the world that support helps survivors. Spiritual support even is very, very essential in helping us cope with this horrific situation.
You know, Doctor, just one final thing. For so many of the families involved here, there is that phenomenon of not having a body and never really knowing what happened to their loved one who perished. How does that complicate the ability to grieve and eventually find some sense of closure?
That really does complicate the grieving process, because one of the ways that one puts closure into that is to have a body, to go through the rituals and to mourn and to have a way of putting that end with that person. But I would recommend some symbolic form of closure. For example, something that they loved, a symbol of that person, something that they cherished, a belonging of that person, and to go through the ritual as if that person is attached to that symbol. Use that symbol as the body to continue the rituals around the grieving process, to put closure in that.
Dr. Ani Kalajian, we really appreciate your advice.
I'd like to warn people, though. Yes. This is it really complicates the effects of PTSD and the psychological response. I'd like to warn everyone not to self-medicate. By that I mean drugs and alcohol and anything that may seem that temporarily relieves the symptom of anger or sadness or grief, but it becomes yet another problem. So please seek people, family members and friends, people that you can talk with, you can be with, and reaffirm your humanity and your existence and your life, but do not reach out to self-medicating kind of drugs and alcohol.
On those words, Dr. Ani Kalajian, thank you once again, psychotherapist at Fordham University. Really appreciate your sharing your thoughts.
All right, we want to switch now.